Welcome back to Keep It Electric. This is episode 80, recorded on Thursday, April 3rd. The Mariners are sitting at 3-4, which is good enough for third place in the AL West, trailing the Rangers and the Angels. Not exactly an ideal start, but not a disaster either. So the question is, what's the real story here? Let's just be honest. This whole thing feels very familiar. Last season, when the first series kicked off, everyone was talking about how great the Red Sox pitching looked, how great it was out of the gate. But this time, no one's really talking about how great the A's pitching looked. Sure, we've got some people talking about the Tigers pitching was looking solid, but the biggest takeaway, the Mariners offense continues to sputter. We can call it early season rust, or we can just acknowledge the reality. This is essentially the same roster as last year, and the struggles at the plate look awfully familiar. Through 7 games, the Mariners are hitting 172 as a team. That's 29th in all of Major League Baseball, but that's pretty much where they were last season too. But to be fair, it's not all bad. They've been competitive outside of the absolute meltdown from Emerson Hancock. We'll get into that. We'll also break down some early defensive concerns, talk about the highs and the lows, especially with Jorge Polanco, and take a look at what's going on in the minors. So let's get into it. So this 3-4 start, is anyone surprised? Let's run it back really quick. Since 2020, here's how the Mariners have opened their first 7 games each season. 2020, 3-4. 2021, 3-4. 2022, 3-4. 2023, 2-5. 2024, 3-4. 2025, 3-4. Now, does this mean anything in the grand scheme of things? Maybe, maybe not. People love to say it's early, and sure, it is. But at the same time, trends are trends. Just look at the Braves. They're 0-7 right now. A team that a lot of people, including myself, picked to win their division. And here's a stat for you. In 42 years, no team has ever made the playoffs after an 0-7 start. Now, am I writing off Atlanta? No. But history tells us that a hole that deep is usually fatal. And that brings us back to the Mariners. Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. At what point do we stop looking at the potential and start believing what the data is telling us about the Mariners? For 5 straight years, they've been this team, a fringe playoff contender that hovers around the same level, year after year. That's not being negative, that's just reality. Even the attendance is starting to reflect that frustration. Fans are tired of the same old script. Now, to the Mariners' credit, they did manage to split the series with the A's, a team a lot of people pegged as a sleeper pick this year. They took game 1, dropped the next 2, then won game 4 to even it up. But in both of those wins, they leaned heavily on their pitching. It wasn't their offense carrying them, and that trend continued against Detroit. In their 3 victories, they averaged 3 runs a game. That's not very good. Now they get a day off today before they start their series, their first road series against the San Francisco Giants. The Giants are 5-1 and rolling right now. And let's just look at the arms that the Mariners will be facing. On Friday, they're facing Justin Verlander, former Cy Young winner, a guy the Mariners have both tagged and been completely dominated by in the past. On Saturday, they have another former Cy Young winner and former Mariner in Robbie Ray. So he's coming off his Tommy John. He's looking sharp. And he's a lefty, which historically has not gone well for Seattle in the last couple years. Then there's Jordan Hicks. He throws absolute gas. He's looking good so far. This is going to be a real test. The Mariners have played well on the road in recent years, but Oracle Park presents its own challenges, especially with that massive outfield. And ironically, that could work in their favor. We've already seen some well-hit gap shots at T-Mobile Park. That would have easily been doubles somewhere else. So if they can find some of those same alleys that they found, AKA there were a couple shots from Ryan Bliss, a couple shots from Victor Robles that were played very well. If they can find those same alleys in San Francisco, it would actually be a rare offensive boost for Seattle. That said, the question isn't just whether the bats can wake up. It's whether they can keep pace with a red-hot Giants squad. I have a good feeling about the offense in this series, but whether that's enough to overcome a team that's playing really well, that's a whole different story. Let's talk about the defense, because through the first 7 games, there have been some real concerns. Now, hopefully a lot of it is just early season rust, but game 2 against the Tigers, that was rough. I was actually there and watching it unfold live. Watching that just made it even more frustrating. Right out of the gate in the first inning, the outfield looked like they were trying to play hero ball. Kerry Carpenter drove in Riley Green, and Victor Robles tried to make a play at the plate, but the throw was quite terrible. Not only did it miss badly, it also allowed Kerry Carpenter, who's not exactly a burner, to get to second base. Then on the very next batter, Colt Keith hits one out into left, and Arozarena throws an equally bad ball home that also allowed Colt Keith to move up to second without even a challenge. 2 routine singles turned into automatic doubles just because of sloppy throws. That, for one, is not winning baseball. And if that wasn't enough, the Mariners had 1 hit the entire game. Just one against Casey Mize, who looked like Nolan Ryan, because that's just par for the course when the Mariners face a starter that they should be able to handle. So yeah, I mean, it was a rough one. And it wasn't just the throws. Like, the Tigers also hit the ball well. They were aggressive, they challenged the zone, and they capitalized on the fact that Seattle's pitchers, they fill up the strike zone. And that's been Detroit's playbook against the Mariners the last 2 seasons. They attack early, they swing hard, they don't wait around, and it generally works. So honestly, like, watching that series, the Tigers look like the version of the Mariners that Dan Wilson keeps saying that he wants. They were smart, they were aggressive swings. It felt like we got beat by the version of ourselves that we aspire to be. And since we're on the subject of defense, we're going to switch and talk about Jorge Polanco and what he's been doing at third base. Before we get into the defensive concerns with Polanco, let's just give him his flowers, because at the plate, he's been everything the Mariners have hoped for. Through 15 at-bats, he's got 6 hits, a home run, 4 ribbies, and a 1,000 OPS. He came up clutch on opening day with that go-ahead 2-run homer and has been rolling through the first 4 games before heading to the paternity list. So this is the version of Polanco that the Mariners front office keeps saying we hadn't seen yet. And watching him now, it's clear that he's healthy, he's comfortable, and his timing looks locked in. Last year, he still managed to hit 16 home runs in 118 games, but he left so many on the table because he kept yanking pitches foul. He probably could have cleared 25 home runs if he had just straightened out a few of them. So far this season, he's barreling balls cleanly. He's not forcing his swing. If you're looking for reasons to be excited about the Mariners offense, Jorge Polanco is one of them. But at third base, that is a different story. Look, I don't think this is a give it time issue or just early season rust. It just doesn't look like third base is working for him. He's made a couple of solid reaction plays on hot liners, but when it comes to actual playable balls, he's just not moving well. And that's forcing JP to play out of his mind just to cover the left side of the infield. And for a team built around pitching and run prevention, that's a problem, because this offense isn't going to be bailing him out. Which brings me to Ben Williamson. This guy is flashing leather all over the place in AAA Tacoma. He's making the type of plays that a team like Seattle, who has to rely on his defense, needs at third base. And he's 24 years old. He looks ready. Whoever this shortstop is just said, like, I'm good down here. I don't need the shuttle to Seattle. He has no interest in going to Seattle because Ben Williamson is just covering the entire left side of the diamond. Honestly, if Ben Williamson doesn't make that play right there, that runner's probably safe. Now, is he going to match Polanco's bat? No, he's not that kind of hitter. But in a tight, low-scoring game like the Mariners typically find themselves in, defense matters. And if this offense isn't clicking anyway, then, like, what are we doing here? I'm not saying that it's time for a drastic shakeup yet, but at the very least, the Mariners should start flirting with the idea of moving Polanco to DH more often, and maybe even rotating him at second base with Ryan Bliss and giving Williamson a shot at third. Because honestly, like, it can't be worse than Miles Mastrobuoni in the batter's box. Like, start the clock. Somebody give Ben Williamson a call. Like, get him on the phone. Tell him the team needs him now. All right. You can file this under too early reactions, but honestly, Mitch Garver looks bad. Through 4 games, he's had 12 at-bats and recorded just 1 hit. Good for a .083 batting average. And if that wasn't enough, in the last Mariners game, his win probability added was negative, which means Basically, he's actively hurting the team's chances of winning by being on the field. And look, it's not just the numbers. The eye test is brutal too. He's late on everything. He looks behind on pitches he should be handling. And it's especially frustrating because he had such a great spring training before he got injured. But whatever he found in March hasn't made the trip into the regular season. I'm not saying the Mariners need to do something about him yet, but this is concerning. And in the midst of all this concern, Harry Ford is just thriving in AAA. Seattle's top catching prospect is leading off the lineup in Tacoma right now. And it's not just about his numbers. It's about his approach. He's showing elite patience. He's lengthening his at-bats. And most importantly, he's getting on base and scoring runs. Ford has also had a strong spring training. So what's the move? Because if Garver keeps looking like this at the plate, if he keeps looking lost and Ford keeps improving and showing that he's ready, at what point do you start asking, why are you throwing Garver out there to spell Cal Raleigh and have him cost games? All right, let's talk about Emerson Hancock, because honestly, that outing against the Tigers was rough. There's no sugarcoating it. He lasted just 2/3 of an inning, gave up 6 earned runs on 7 hits and a walk, and was optioned to AAA Tacoma the very next day on April 1st. And here's the thing. Hancock, he's shown promise coming out of spring training. He introduced some new pitches. He looked more confident and gave off the vibe of a guy that was ready to take the next step. But in this outing, the biggest issue was his command. He just wasn't hitting his spots. Everything was left over the plate against a Tigers lineup that had already been aggressive all series. That's basically just putting the ball on a tee. That's what he did for them. They were ready. They were swinging. He left the ball right in their swing paths, and they punished him for it. I believe the last time a Mariners starter got yanked in the first inning, you'd have to go back to 2019, and that was Mike Leake. And you got to give Dan Wilson some credit. Credit to him for pulling the plug when he did. He could have left Hancock out there to take his lumps and eat innings, but he made the call early and gave the team a fighting chance. And to the Mariners' credit, they did rally and make it a game. So now Hancock's in Tacoma, and the big question is what comes next? We don't have a firm timeline on George Kirby. Jonathan Diaz is currently called up, but we've seen the bullpen game. It hasn't been all that effective. Given the team has 3 off days in their next 9 games, a 4-man rotation is a realistic short-term option. Even though some people don't believe it, it makes perfect sense. It's also very possible Hancock makes 1 start in AAA and then gets called right back up to continue filling in, because the reality is whether it's Hancock or a combination of Jonathan Diaz and someone like Carlos Vargas, who's shown he can eat innings, none of the options are significantly better right now. And long term, Luis Castillo is still on the table. Let's be honest, if the Mariners are going to ever move Luis Castillo, the only way that happens is if Emerson Hancock is ready to take over. That means you need to figure that out before the trade deadline. So yeah, the start was bad. Flush it. Move on. Hancock is still a luxury arm, and it would be a mistake to let one outing derail his trajectory. You want him to keep getting reps, especially while Kirby is sidelined, because whether it's this season or next, the Mariners need to know what they've got. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Keep It Electric. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or leave a review if you're listening on your favorite platform. I'll talk to you next week.